All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to what will be our third last class in CSC 404 for the year. Um, I am very pleased to introduce to you Damian Lee from Blue Ocean Games. Today's class is going to be about some of the business aspects of games, because now that we're getting close to the end of the course, the thoughts are going to be towards our final demos at Behavior Interactive next week and at Level Up Showcase the week after that. And so, what we want to think about is what are we going to do after Level Up, right? Your games are going to be perfect by then. And so, once that is done, then what can they be used for? Because we don't want them to just die on the vine because the course is done. So, this is where Damien's area of expertise comes in handy because, well, I'll let him introduce himself a little bit more. But let's just say that his area of expertise will be handy for those of you who are looking to do something with your games after the course is over. All right. In that case, Damien, I will leave it to you to introduce yourself.
Great. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Damian. I'm one of the partners at Blue Ocean Games. So we're a relatively new early stage fund that focuses on, I guess, more broadly interactive media, but it encompasses a lot of games, gamified experiences, and tools that are adjacent to that. And w One of the things that we try and do is support a lot of kind of unproven earlier in the career talent through funding and other kinds of support. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm happy to be here. Of my plan is to give you a little bit of overview of the landscape, and then just some of my personal opinion on I guess things that I think would it be useful to me if I were in your shoes. Take some questions. Happy to talk, both in terms of like more of the commercial side of game funding, but also more in terms of career management too. And also, if we don't get to your question today, or you think of a question later, you can also go to blueoceangames.com, and we have a Discord channel, and basically me and other partners, like we're uh, very proactive there. We try and answer all the questions. Whether it's something like you have an offer from like a publisher and you want to get a second opinion, or you just have some random question about like some career path decision that you've got to make. You can either put it in the general channel or open a ticket, and then it would just be us answering it. So we want to help you. It's definitely a journey where there's a lot of people who are kind of in it for like some very tough roads ahead, but with also a lot of rewards. So we want to make sure that that you have all the information you need. Yeah. So one of the things that I think is confusing when people are deciding, like, okay, you've done your capstone project, and then, what to do next is like a lot of conflicting advices. You see all these like heroic stories, right? Like Eric Barone, he couldn't get like an entry-level coding job, so he was like working part-time as a theater usher. His partner kind of helped him survive for a number of years until he finished Stardew Valley, and then in the first year he made $30 million, right? And then there's like more recently Local Thunk. Um, he hadn't really made a game before. It was like a side project just for his own learning. Like his, I think, product folder was literally called like card game inside his like learning directory. And then he made Blatro, and then it's like the first game made by like a solo developer that got nominated for Game of the Year. And there's like stories and stories like that. So and those are great inspirations. But at the end of the day, they like um, there's kind of aspirations, and then there's also like I guess survivorship bias. So, it's like if you hear somebody who win the lottery, do you want to make your financial planning center around winning the lottery, right? So, there's certain things that you kind of want to ask yourself about the game that you make. What is this game for? Like, is it a product? Is it a portfolio piece? Is it a learning vehicle? Is it a prototype for your future studio? And what does a team look like after we graduate? Like there's some important questions that you need to ask yourself and answer very honestly, and then that'll kind of help guide like what the paths are. Um, so some of the things that are challenging about finding information like in the game industry related to funding and terms is it changes very regularly. So, like the market 10 years ago is very different from 5 years ago, which is very different from today. Um, so, if way back it was kind of more like uh, you get you're kind of working as a subsidiary for or like work for hire for a bigger game company. And then you develop this game, and then you spend a couple of years making it, and then you keep it a secret, and then do a big release. Now it'll be pretty tough to enter the market that way, or be funded that way. Um, and the situation right now is I think 2025 Steam saw 20,000 new releases, and then that number is going up every year. Um, so you're competing against like all the other games. So it's not just competing against other like level up contestants anymore. If you decide to put it up into the market, you have to compete against sequels, other well-funded indie games, and also GTA 6 whenever that comes out, and then also sales of games that were released in prior years that are being discounted now. So there's hundreds of thousands of options for people, and then that industry as a whole is kind of competing against like the premium game is competing against um, like the attention of people's time against Netflix or uh, like any other entertainment that people might choose to do. Um, so. I mean, like if you haven't read it, a good source of information to kind of read like once a year is Matthew Ball's kind of state of the game industry. Like he puts out this like huge chart book of like hundreds of um, data and charts related to where the game industry is at each year. So that's a good resource to look up. And I think in the most recent one you'll see that. Uh, there's some kind of encouraging signs that a lot of even though there's a lot of troubles in like the bigger firms, there is some promise that like a lot of the trending and top selling games have been small and up and coming indie developers. So so there's a bit of a like like a glimpse of hope, and then also a lot of challenges that are like facing the industry. Um, so where should you I guess like kind of like what should your next step be? Um, so first for people who aren't familiar, there's in terms of the funding options for your games. I would say traditional publisher and VC are very unlikely at the stage for most like graduating student type of games. And part of the reason is uh, so VCs tend to fund people more so than the actual the idea in itself. And with and also they like recurring revenue, and usually the first game that you make as a student is usually a premium game. So it's not very attractive from like a cost reward perspective under the VC model. Um, Publishers usually like to see a demo that they feel gives them a lot of confidence that it's fun. So generally, if you have a demo where you're kind of like showing what the game is about, but it's not fun yet, then it'll be more challenging to secure a publisher. So um, that kind of leaves like more of a incubator first check type of funds. Also government grants, um, and also self-funding, which is a very viable option. And then um, and that's kind of the gap that like we've tried to fill at Blue Ocean Games. Like nobody's funding kind of like unproven teams working on a new IP. With that are making a premium PC game. Um, a little bit later on, I'll describe what we think is would be a like a way to be able to actually fund some of these projects that we've done. Um, I would say that um, if I were in your shoes, um, what you want to do is like during development, and maybe as soon as the course is over, uh, you want to put like yourself and the game out there, like TikTok, YouTube, like shorts or like reels, like what Reddit, wherever it is. Um, So if you show any kind of market validation, then you do have a chance to get funded. And that's usually the type of signal that investors will look for. And it doesn't have to be that the first video you put up goes viral. But certainly, I see people who consistently put something up, and you build a fan base, and people rooting for you, and then you show the improvement over time. Then that's a big signal for investors. And if I were looking at a team and they had consistently put up these like updates, and it shows how productive they are, and also like them taking feedback from the online community, then that tells me a lot more than like a resume would. Um, so and if you actually are able to convert some of those views into wish lists, then you're likely going to be able to negotiate much better terms. Well, it would make a difference between getting an offer and not getting an offer. And if you had some videos that had over 1 million views, or it led to like 50,000 wish lists, then you'd be able to kind of have your choice of investors. I see a lot of kind of the most like um, good hustle indie developers do this path. I don't know if any of you guys have like played Paddle Paddle Paddle. Um, it was like a very young student solo developer in Europe. He basically created a friend swap game, um, and he had never made a multiplayer game before, but kind of taught himself with resources online and used a multiplayer engine to help take care of some of the back end. And um, you know, there were other games that used the engine to make FriendSwap before, but the big difference with him was he kind of put himself out there, and then he talked a lot about his game online, and then that created kind of a seed for that virality. So yeah, like one of the more successful flows that we see is start putting videos up early, even before you have any demos. Start converting them to wish lists, and then you do a Kickstarter campaign. The game is one of the largest subcategories out there, even now at Kickstarter. And they have a very supportive like a game team there. And then the Kickstarter, even if it's not a huge amount of even if you get like 100 people, like however many you get, um, it's still something where you're getting actual paying fans as opposed to just free people that are have like relatively low commitment in Discord or wishlist. And then you start using those paying fans feedback to improve your game, and then you participate in Steam Fest, and then you launch. Um, and yeah, so that's kind of like the more of the new path where you self-publish, and anywhere along that path, if you have some kind of early sign of success, then you'll start getting inbound interest from indie publishers and investors. So that'll probably be my like base case as opposed to like, you know, before you've revealed your game, cold calling all the investors and trying to pitch them. That's generally not it generally doesn't work. Um, I'll say that uh, there's some, when you are kind of getting to pitching investors, there's some, and probably also for like the first like game industry job, maybe jobs in general, um, some things to keep in mind that like are red flags to others. You Um, like so one is uh, over negotiating. So um, let's say that you did actually get an investment offer for your game, and you you're happy with it, but you ask ChatGPT and it gives you all this like feedback on like things that could be better, and you start asking for all these things, then you might lose that contract. So if you're in a position of strength and you have multiple offer, I think it's fine to like um, get them to like negotiate, and then like tell people you got this offer from this other thing, and then see who gives the best offer. If you have a single offer and it's already pretty good, it's likely that they're already kind of taking a chance on you. And if you kind of push it too far, then there's a non-trivial chance that you would lose that deal, and then you'd end up with nothing. Um, there's also uh, s- some people kind of try like signal that like if only I were to get funded, then I'll be able to make this game. Kind of implying that if they weren't funded, they wouldn't make this game. So let's say you met somebody over a coffee chat, and then 6 months later they ask you how that game is going, and you're like, well, I haven't been able to make this work on this game because I've been too busy working and paying the bills, and I'm just waiting to get funded before I can work on this game again. That's usually also a red flag. Investors want to fund somebody, especially in creative products, somebody who's passionate enough to work on it no matter what. Um, so, uh, off a lot of investors in games have been burnt before, lost a lot of money. Um, and part of that is you fund somebody, they're pretty content with the salary it pays. They work on the game for a bit, money runs out, they're not done the game, and then that's it, right? So they generally look for people who are going to finish this game no matter what. And ideally, it stays on budget, on time, but if unexpected happens, they're still passionate enough to somehow get it done. Um, and then the other is kind of like over-promising or being kind of overconfident about where you are with things. Um, so this is more of a case if you're starting your own startup, like even if it's not a game startup, um, you kind of want to talk to like all the investors at once, and then kind of keep them relatively on the same stage, and then kind of get them to compete, have some FOMO, and then pick the best one. Um, if you kind of stagger them too much, or like do it in a way where like you tell investor A oh, this other investor is really interested in giving me a signed term sheet. He said he's going to give it to me in 2 weeks. And then, 3 weeks later, when they check in with you, like that didn't happen, then, it makes you look bad. It also makes it look like your project's not that attractive. Um, so you want to be a little bit more like thoughtful and careful about when and how you talk to different investors. It's usually best to kind of like have like a strategy and a plan before rather than just kind of like cold blasting everybody with a pitch deck. Um, so. Let me maybe before I move on, I'll see if anybody has any questions about anything I've said so far.
I mean, it's pretty good. I think, hmm. I think eventually, once we get to the end, we'll have more like deeper questions about like Blue Ocean or specific things for people's games. One of the questions Marcus is mentioning VCs. Do you want to
Yeah,
explain? I can.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, VC. Uh, I mean, depending on the context, it's either going to stand for venture capital funds or venture capitalists or venture
Mhm.
capital.
Yeah.
Like now, basically, it's like these are funds. These are like financial investment firms who invest in early stage. As opposed to private equity funds, which invest in bigger, larger companies. Um, so and then inside VC, they kind of divide up even further into like the ones that write the first check, like almost like an incubator, like Y Combinator. And then there's funds that do both, like A16Z. They run a speed run program for the first check, and then they also have like larger vehicles that do seed round, Series A, B. But it's basically like an investment firm that primarily invests by taking equity in your startup. So publishers are probably going to require revenue share, and it's going to be investing in like that specific game, whereas VCs are going to be investing in your company. And they both kind of have their pros and cons. Um, with a So VCs kind of tend to look at the team, which means that you work on something and it's not working out. It's okay if you pivot. You're kind of aligned. So Slack kind of initially started up as like a game, didn't really work out, but they made Slack and then now like everyone there is a billionaire, right? So that's okay because like the company benefited from that. That wouldn't be okay if you funded that game as a publisher because that whatever game they were working on either didn't get finished or didn't make any money, and they only have a claim on the revenue of that. So you're going to be like subject to much more stricter like milestones and like how it's funded and things like that, and how your time is spent. Um, Whereas VC is going to be are more about like long term um, like investing in the team and the growth of the team. Um, the downside is the VC model doesn't really work as well for indie games. Um, so for example, Y Combinator, they invest a couple $100,000, and they take call it like anywhere between 7.5 to low tens percentage in your company. So that means that your game needs to kind of land in like the top like 0 point something percent of all Steam games, like pretty much every other year. Like um it's a very high hurdle to get like um the type of like unicorn kind of outcome that VCs need to make their fund economics work because they're taking such a small portion of basically equity as opposed to like taking share of the very top line revenue. Um,
I guess, are you going to talk more about some of the other funding sources, like government funding or, you know, the magical uniform of angel investors?
Yeah, I mean, angels, so I think you want to be like pretty careful with like angel investors.
Hmm.
You uh I think it's like I mean, I think every round should have some, right? But you want to be careful in terms of like they bring more than money, right? I mean, if you don't have any other options, obviously like, getting funding from people who like believe in you is great. First you want to make sure that like they know, they've also done other angel checks. So it's not like it'd be terrible if like you receive money from a family member who never had done angel investing before and like, have like no idea about the risk characteristics of these, like that 99% of the time they're going to lose it. And then, it's like very important money for them, right? You ideally want to, unless it's like trivial money for them, in which case it's just a support check. But you ideally want to find mentors who do regular angel investing, where you get the money and also like the advice and they have skin in the game on your project. And a good lead investor is also able to kind of help introduce you to like the right potential angels. So probably finding that lead investor is like the a pass. You don't need to know all these angels yourself. Um, in terms of the government funding, I mean, like Canada has one of the more generous venues. So there's the Canada Media Fund, which has a couple different tracks, some for like concepts and some for after you establish your studio. Um, and there's also the tax credit where when you pay yourself a salary out of your corporation, then if you meet certain criteria, then a portion of that is reimbursed. And it's different depending on the province that you end up living in. Um, this is also an area where your lead investor, if you have one, is able to kind of like help provide guidance on that. But also, Interactive Ontario, and frankly, more recently, like LLMs are able to like guide you in terms of like the programs that are available and how to apply for them. Um, one of my pet peeves is like people are referring to like, LLMs as like they're all the same, right? I would say anyone who's like a potential entrepreneur really should be pretty much asking everything through um, you know, uh, like one of the LLMs. But I would say uh, if it were me, I would only ask to at least ChatGPT thinking, heavy mode, or ChatGPT Pro. I find that like Opus, Gemini, or like ChatGPT Auto or Instant give very unreliable answers when it comes to things related to like these kind of like forms or like programs or even like contract reviews. Um, definitely pay up um, for one of the like highest premium reasoning models and use that. And you don't have to listen to everything, but like you should at least read their answer and then make your own decision. Um, yeah, sorry, Steve, you're gonna say.
Oh, I guess the one other thing I guess I would mention is the government funding tends to be allocated more towards proven developers. So they'll never fund something like the a company's first game because usually one of the criteria that they'll have is, okay, show me what games you published in order to be considered for this fund. So if you have like a history, like I think that we got like the Ontario Creates grant to help us fund Level Up because we could establish that we had like 10 years worth of running the events. So the money is not just going to go to waste. Yep.
Yeah, no, no, that's a very good point. And I mean, uh, other than the tax credit, like nothing is like for sure.
Yep.
Like the tax credit is like kind of like baked into the tax code, and I guess it's possible it may go away at some point. But um, and the tax credit kind of you do kind of need funding together because you're kind of paying yourself a salary there, and then you're getting a credit back for that.
Mhm.
But these grants, uh, yes, and I mean, I've also seen some studios also take uh, pretty generous shred credits, for the
Mhm.
engineering work that you do.
Yep, yep.
Um, so there are ways to and there are like firms that actually help you apply for these. And they take a portion, like they take like 15% of the grant you get, so you don't necessarily have to pay something up front. Um, so like there's you'll see like a few of them always sponsoring like these game conferences. But if you're looking
Mhm.
for some recommendations on them, in our Discord, like some people can share their experiences with some of these usually smaller boutique accounting firms that do this for you as well.
Hmm. There's a question. This is interesting, whether indie developers should get lawyers to help with investments.
Yeah, I
It's
think it
interesting,
depends on the
right?
amount.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know if you need
so
like a lawyer or like when you get to a certain point, I'm guessing lawyers or accountants
right. Um,
because all the tax credit stuff that you mentioned, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the tax credit definitely the first application that you do, and maybe all the applications you do, you'll want that boutique accounting firm. But part of the reason I recommend that is because you're not paying something up front. Um, you know, with the lawyers, I would say the textbook answer is like yes, right? Like you should get a lawyer. But if it was like a family member who like, I was allowed to give like any advice, right? I would probably say generally no. So my honest opinion at this point is that like the check size, like, and let's say it's like depending on the check size, of course, like if you're doing multi-million-dollar deal, um, then you like if the legal expense is like such a small portion of that. But like let's say you're getting like a $50,000 investment, and like do you want to spend $20,000 of that on the legal fee to protect the other $30,000, right? So and also like are you going to be able to find a lawyer that's like really familiar with all the intricacies of like indie game funding, which is very, very niche. Um,
I
I'd
I know
say
I know one. Right? It's the one that all of the indies before Ubisoft came all use. Is this one guy?
yeah, and I mean also like what do you use them for? So I would say and then just anecdotally uh when I so even like some like pretty important contracts when I get them and we're using like $1,000 an hour like legal service. I run it by ChatGPT Pro, and of course you gotta be pretty comfortable with like how you prompt it. And like I run like 3 instances of that just to make sure there's some robustness. Um, and it caught like more issues. It caught pretty much all the issues that the human lawyer did. But it caught like more than that. And then when I bring it up, then they acknowledge that it's an issue. So I would say that unless you're gonna spend like 5 digits on legal advice, like for contract review and explaining it to you, ChatGPT Pro is already at a point where I think it's gonna be more helpful than like the smaller budget legal advice. Um, the other thing, so like one of the ways we try to like deal with that is standardized contract. So for example, Blue Ocean Games, we put our contract. So first we standardize it like Y Combinator, and then we put it up on the website so that if there is an issue, like everyone will be able to flag it and like and share it in the Discord channel, right? So the reason why nobody bothers like having a lawyer review Y Combinator contract is because everyone sees it, it's transparent. Somebody who's rich would have had their lawyer review it, and if there's an issue, they would have shared it online, right? So I think standardized contract you can take more comfort. You just have to understand what you're signing. But like you'd be able to take comfort that it's like there's nothing like nefarious in there. Um, But in terms of catching whether there's something really shady in there, I think ChatGPT Pro is already good enough at it. But if you have a large enough project, then I think it's worth getting a lawyer to double check it. And it's certainly cheaper to get them to double check it than to get them to draft the whole contract. So if you are going to use a lawyer, I would say still use ChatGPT Pro for all your like asking, explain it to me like I'm 10-year-old kind of questions and like, draft it for me and like, what should I ask my lawyer? All those to get that all out of the way so that you're really just spending like an hour of the human lawyer's time. Um, how can indie devs protect their IP? Do they often need to? Um, I think it's going to be pretty transparent one way or another in the contract. So, um, like equity in terms of the equity investments, like, as long as you have majority share of your studio, the IP belongs to that studio. So there's really not much to be concerned of there. With publishing, um, sometimes you see like really weird terms publishers put in there, right? Um, and you might be signing away some stuff like, film rights, merchandise rights, sequel rights, like all these things. So publishing deals, I would say you need to be very careful like reading, and they're more esoteric. Like even the same company might offer like very different publishing agreement to like every single deal that they do. So I would say publishing deals, you want to be very careful reading through the terms.
Yeah, I can actually add one thing. There was one time when I was called in to be an expert witness in a video game IP case where basically one company had hired this employee and taken some of the work that the employee had made prior to being hired. And so the employee ended up suing the company to try to, I guess, get some compensation for what they felt was a theft of their IP. I mean, it's not like in a case like that, it's like, the employee kind of had more of the right to it. But the problem was like in order to get that compensation, they had to spend a lot of money on lawyers and a lot of time, litigating before they end up seeing anything from it. So sometimes the protection is there, but you also have to be solvent enough to be able to fight the battles if it comes up.
Yeah.
Yep. The
Yeah,
real
that's
world's fun.
yeah. Um, now, so I think one of the things that uh when you enter kind of like the like I'm a full-time indie like developer now or like I'm running an indie studio now, also um like you probably run into is like dealing with AI, right? And investors love it when you use AI, and potentially your customers won't. Um, so it's definitely a balance, but then it maybe means that like certain art you don't use it, but like I think everybody like behind the scene uses it for coding. And like I'm sure everybody who's like super angry about AI on Reddit still like use ChatGPT like personally, right? So I would say like one of the concerns that like I see in like these like indie game Discord channels is like there's like some like very loud voices that speak out against like using AI in your work. And I would say certainly at least like from a perspective of getting funding, your productivity is more important. So um, if you're able to um, let's say like you pitched a certain idea and I'm the person reviewing the investment. Um, frankly, like unless you show me like like a huge wish list or like millions of views, I'm not gonna have huge conviction that like this is gonna be the idea that like becomes the next Blatro. Um, but if you show me that like okay, like every month or like every 2 weeks, you prototype a concept and then you put it up there, and then they've all failed so far, but like the prototypes are getting better each time, and like you're continuing to test, then I can have pretty like strong confidence that if I fund you for 2 years, that at some point in the next 2 years, you might hit something that's really resonates with some group of demographic, right? So, I mean, I'll definitely say like, stay up to date with like the latest tools, don't be scared to do that. Like it's not taboo. And um, like whatever you're working on, like make sure it's like actually improving your skill, so that like um, to fail, even if it fails, and it's with these odds, like it's natural that it fails, but like even if it fails, that somehow it becomes like the seed for the next success, as opposed to like, okay, you made this like puzzle platformer, like a like pixel art game, and then it failed, and then you make another one that's like pretty much like making more levels of that, right? Like there's no learning there. And if you keep doing that as a career, then at some point, unless you get very lucky, um, like it might narrow your paths a lot, as opposed to like um, you like there's no like if you make something that's like a strong technical achievement, then you might be able to pivot that into a startup, which kind of pays for you to like work on your dream game, like on your free time, or like you come up with some process where you can test like trailers very quickly, A/B test things, and then use analytics to improve. At the end of the day, like this is it's a fan building industry. Um, so like you have if you're gonna do it for a living, then it needs to be about like understanding the trends, testing things, and like and kind of iterating quickly. Like that's kind of like the landscape we're in now, as opposed to like when there were only a handful of games that people are really like considering anyway. Then you just have to make it. Like that's not really the environment we're in anymore.
Mhm. And I guess this is also like if you're applying for jobs, then this is what you need to do. You need to post like a portfolio that has all of your work, even the stuff that was crappy at the beginning, because you might be embarrassed about it, but people like to see people's progress and how they've like you saw you made all the mistakes, you learned all the lessons, so you're not going to make that mistake when we hire you, is the feeling. And you can sort of see like all the things that this person has learned through iteration. And that makes people more attractive than someone who doesn't look like they've actually like made mistakes and then gotten back up again.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. So I mean, so I'm involved at like obviously hiring for Blue Ocean as well, but also like when the companies that we invest in hires, and also when I was at bigger firms, and um, we're kind of at a point where it's like, you got to show, not tell, right? Like, so the resume and the interview is like the importance of those have gone, like, the interview is more like for the fit, right? But in terms of how I know, like, you're good, it's going to be you show me your GitHub, you show me something like your product that's like, or like, like hosted live somewhere. Um, so you're all in very good schools, but like, I would probably hire somebody where like I see their like project and it's like, the right tech level of technical achievement, who like didn't go to university, then like somebody who graduated from a top university where like, all their examples in their GitHub are just like toy like assignment examples, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, I think now, so maybe now I'll explain a little bit about like our approach, because it's one of the options that's available to you guys.
Yep, I was going to say, I think the last 5 minutes should be about like Blue Ocean.
Yeah,
Because especially you guys are one of our bigger sponsors for Level Up and providing opportunities for people who are presenting. So yeah.
and we've also funded former former students of this class, who've like been at Level Up. Um, so there's kind of like two tracks. One is like you're making like a PC Steam game, and then the other is like this is more of a like a tech startup, right? So if it's more of a tech startup, then it's kind of funded similar to a tech startup. if it's more of a PC Steam game, we created this new contract where it's basically like a hybrid. We take 20% equity and 30% of the revenue share. So it's not really like overwhelming on either end, but essentially it adds up to half the economics. But we basically fund either the person or the team with 2 years of salary. And the idea is, and the IP and like the control and everything belongs to that team. Um, so um, Now mathematically, like if you look at the Steam game returns, this isn't really going to make money. But my hope is that it breaks even so we can keep doing it, right? Um, but if one of these guys have like a huge success, then then that actually helps us be able to do even more in like the future batches. Um, but what like for us, like what we're encouraging is do the market validation early. So make a trailer, even if it's not playable, put it up there. And a lot of people are like, well, if I only had a marketing budget, my game would have sold. That's not really like how you're gonna. If you have to pay people to play your game, if you have to pay people to like watch your video, it's probably gonna be a very uphill battle. Um, if it's good, it'll go viral. You don't need to put it in like a few like Reddit and then a few places, reach out to a few streamers, and then if it doesn't go viral from that, then you probably need to like fix your idea or move on. But just keep testing ideas. Eventually, there's that like really young team from India, that made that video like where they don't even have a game yet, where like you come across this like corpse that you've got to like get rid of, right? Um, like we're so screwed or something like that. And it's like if you find that viral concept where like it hits a note, and then you build out the full game like with that community, you're gonna have a way easier time just with everything, funding and budget and everything. So we run trailer competitions, Rising Tide. This iteration of it ends next week, but we run it every quarter. So if you need a place where like you want to test your trailer, and then get the gamers to vote on it, then Rising Tide Challenge is a good one. You can go to www.blueoceangames.com to get information about that and participate in the next iteration if you're not in this one. Um, Otherwise, you can try and like market validate it on your own, and then you can apply uh, to Blue Ocean Games. Um, I also want to encourage people like to look beyond just like the traditional models. Like maybe like more and more, there's like some people working on like simulation games where like the purpose of the game isn't like pure entertainment, but like it's to train AI agents. And also there's more like games that are either for like kids or like super senior people. Like kind of like how like game completely changed New York Times business model, right? So I think it doesn't have to be like making another game that looks the same as like some other games that you've like made in the past. I think there's a lot of ways that you could be creative in terms of like changing industries, and like we're open to funding any of that. So yeah, like we love finding really hungry people who are very productive and willing to learn together and kind of get through this what I think is like a very pivotal time in our history. And our goal is to make sure that like you don't have to have financial stress to take that risk by funding you for 2 years. And if it fails and you have to go get a job, then you'll have a really great portfolio. And if it works out well and you're an entrepreneur and you have a big company, then we're really happy for you. So that's kind of like the the goal of what we're trying to do.
Cool. Well, that brings us to 3 o'clock. I know you might have some extra questions. If you do, then, well, Damien's easy to find. Just look up Blue Ocean Games and you'll be able to find him. But I want to say thank you on behalf of everyone here for bringing in this expertise that definitely goes outside of what we're used to in the academic setting. And also on behalf of the Level Up Showcase, I want to thank Blue Ocean for sponsoring it. So everyone, um, when you're at Level Up in about 2 weeks, then definitely look out for them. Damien will be one of the ones presenting our newest Best Trailer Award. So, so yeah, if you had any last minute trailers that you didn't get a chance to send in, then let us know and we'll make sure they get to Damien somehow. All right. But yes, thank you, Damien, for sharing your time and your expertise with us today.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right.